Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. It's a very bad state of affairs when the Education Secretary in Scotland won't send her own daughter to the school because the problems of that school are so bad she fears for her daughter's safety. Shirley-Anne Somerville, who was the Education Secretary until the recent reshuffle where she got shunted over to Justice, has said that she was deeply concerned about the safety of her own daughter. She was the Education Secretary. If there was problems in schools, it's down to her. How bad is she at her own job when she cannot even protect her own family? She is another example of the SNP picking failure after failure and failing again in every single thing it has complete control of. Education in Scotland is a devolved matter. It always has been. Even before the setting up of the Scottish Parliament, education was always purely Scottish. It did not come from Westminster. This cannot be laid at the door of anyone other than the SNP. So how come this woman, this former education minister, can't guarantee the safety of even her own children? Let's take a look at this article and see why they fail everywhere, but why they're failing in education so spectacularly, and have been for quite a few years now. Anyway, here goes. So, SNP Education Secretary worried about sending her own daughter to one of Scotland's unruly schools. Teachers and responsible parents are furious about a surge in classroom problems, with even the former Education Secretary admitting she was concerned. Hint, it was your job to do something about it, Shirley-Anne. And there she is, there's Shirley-Anne. She is desperately worried about her own daughter being in a school that she was ultimately responsible for. Which goes to show, it's just the failure in the SNP extends to everyone. It isn't just Humza Yousaf. We know he is a serial failure. But even the people he's picking are serial failures, and that is something that needs to be very concerning for everyone in Scotland, especially everyone who has a child of school age. Anyway, Shirley-Anne Somerville admitted she was concerned for her own daughter due to the post-pandemic rise in pupil troubles and abuse. You can't say the V word, they don't like it on YouTube. Can't say it too early in the video. Anyway, this is emerged. The SNP MSP, who served as Education Secretary for 2 years until a move to Justice in Humza Yousaf's reshuffle, met Glasgow teacher Scott McGimpsey at Holyrood last month to discuss the problem. McGimpsey, an NASUWT National Executive Member for Scotland, gave a speech to the Teaching Union's Scottish Conference on Monday. He told members, "In my capacity of one of the two NEMs here in Scotland, I had a meeting on March the 15th with Shirley-Anne Somerville, who was at that point the Cabinet Secretary for Education. This is where he said, I told her that members, including myself, are verbally abused and sworn at regularly, sometimes daily. If you are in there and you are the teacher, teachers must have the power to pick unruly pupils out. I mean, not physically pick them out perhaps, but send them out the classroom and get them out and then banned from the school. There's got to be an initial suspension followed, for the first offence, and a second offence is a complete exclusion. You're out. You do not come back to that school, and it's up to you. And when you get your third school, then you start taking the parents to court and things like that. We need to build up a whole bank of measures that will first of all punish a child, but then ultimately sanction the parents for raising such often wee bastards. Anyway, after hearing this, she stated that no one should have to put up with that sort of thing. Actually, incidentally, as an aside, the Tories in Westminster are trying to bring in a law, that an employee who is abused by a member of the public or someone, the employee is liable. Now, if that was the case, and a pupil abused a teacher, the teacher would then sue the local education authority or the local council, whoever's responsible for that particular school. And I think at that point, the council, once it's starting to pay out millions upon millions a year in damages to teachers who've been abused by pupils, will start taking the issue seriously and will start excluding pupils much more quickly, and that will only ever improve the education levels of schools, because you're losing all the disruptive pupils, and the ones that actually are there, that are learning, aren't being distracted by noisy little wankers, basically. But anyway, after hearing this, she stated no one should have to put up with that sort of thing. She went on to say that at times she was concerned for her own daughter when sending her to school due to stories that she would bring home, this being the daughter. He also contrasted the situation in classrooms with the recent disruptions by protesters at the Scottish Parliament, where police are on hand to protect MSPs and hecklers are routinely ejected from the building. Mr. McGimpsey asked, so it is fine to prevent politicians from abuse in their workplace, but teachers are expected just to accept it. He also spoke about the vicious attack that took place in the Wade Academy in Anstruther in Fife, which was then posted on her social media and led to a nationwide outcry. The teacher said this graphic incident, while extreme, is not as rare as some wish to believe it is. The conference in Glasgow heard that an increase in the amount of severity of verbal and physical abuse from pupils appears to be the legacy of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mike Corbett, NASUWT National Office official in Scotland, said no teacher should go to work with the expectation that they will be either verbally or physically abused. No person at all. Let's not just pick out teachers. I agree, the teachers shouldn't. But nobody should have that. Nobody should go to work expecting that sort of thing. And there needs to be safeguards. But the trouble is, because they're dealing with children, people have this rosy image of little children running around free and easy in the sun. Not all of them are like that. And some of them are the product of very damaging homes, very terrible upbringings. And they do represent an absolute danger. And actually, a lot of the time, they're vulnerable children. They need help as much as they need punishment. But that said, you cannot allow people to be abused on a regular basis without some form of deterrent occurring. And as I say, initially it needs to be a suspension followed by a full exclusion, and they cannot come back to the school. But if after the second exclusion, then you start taking the parents to court and start taking things from the parents, and that is the only way. It's the only way it can work. Anyway, he said it's about time the Scottish Government made strong and unequivocal statements about the rights of teachers to a safe working environment, and it took action to ensure that these rights are being delivered in every school. And I do agree. Now, I do know, and I do complain about teachers because they're all very sort of hard left, and they push agendas, and so yes, I will attack teachers, but I'll attack teachers for the things that they need to be attacked for, but I'll attack them also because of what they do. But it's only an attack on their agendas, on their politics, on what they're actually doing and saying. I will not have any kind of a physical thing. I won't stand for that. That's not right. Nobody needs to go to school and be abused like that, especially not by children. And it's about time that somebody took this particular nettle, grasped this nettle, and actually did something to ensure that schools become safe environments, and not just for the teachers, but for other pupils. Anyone convicted or punished for any kind of physical or verbal abuse, not just on a teacher but on another pupil at the school, anyone, and it needs to be dealt with. Because if you did it in the street, the laws exist to do it in the street, but apparently these laws aren't treated to the same level within the confines of the schoolyard, and that is wrong. You've got to treat people in a school the same as if they were in the street, and if they did that in the street, they'd be arrested, they'd be prosecuted, and you've got to do it in a school, and it's the same as that. But anyway, I do feel sorry for the teachers that do get this, but I'll still attack them when they do stupid things, of course. But it's not right, and it is about time that the SNP stood up and admitted the failings in the education system. This is just another one of those failings. Yet again, the SNP, because this is purely devolved, it's purely the SNP. No one else has had control of the Scottish education system for 15 years, and that's what they've got to. And so, yes, whoever the current education secretary is, has got a job to do. But I bet they don't. What's the betting that they don't? What is the odds on anything changing, or at least anything changing for the better? Things might change for the worse, but they certainly won't change for the better. Anyway, and the round off, come up and we'll finish the video. When even the education secretary cannot control schools, you know it's a bad, bad state of affairs. Now, the new education secretary, Jenny Gilruth, she has got to take this on. She's got to jump on this straight away. Parents do not want to send their children to a school in the expectation that they're going to come home injured, hurt, damaged, upset, anything like that. Ultimately, it's down to the school. The school has to have the powers to enforce discipline. Without discipline being enforceable, there is no discipline. There can never be discipline. You've got to have the rules, but you've got to be able to back them up. And that's that. And that is down to the government. The government has got to create the law that can give these schools the right to do what it needs to do to get rid of the unruly pupils, get rid of the troublemakers, and put them in. And basically, if you create hard schools, like the old Borstals even, and anyone who gets thrown out for various reasons has to attend a Borstal, and if they don't, you sue the parents and things like that. I think once you get to that state, then you will improve the education. Of course, a lot of it also has to do with inadequate teachers, people who have gone into teaching but who can't really cut it. Because they're so woke, they've never had to deal with anything disruptive, with people that will just say no, because they've lived in their little wokery of social justice for years before becoming teachers. If you have teachers that are, say, ex-military, ex-police, something like that, they won't put up with the level of crap that someone straight out of college who's 21, 22 years of age and has never faced difficulty. If you haven't lived, you haven't got the ability, you don't have the life skills. And I think that's half the problem. You're getting teachers coming in who don't have the life skills. So it's not going to get easier until you start getting harder teachers, basically. But no teacher, of course, should expect to be on the back end of this anyway. But it is ultimately down to the SNP. Will they do anything? I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see in here on the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, share the video. Done that one. Share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't send your kids to an unruly school, and goodbye.